Hi, my name is Mike Starkey. I'm a farmer from Brownsburg, Indiana. Corn, soybean farmer. Farm with my brother and nephew and my son Nick. And we no-till 3,000 acres, approximately 3,000 acres. Tried no-tilling corn in the early 90s and didn't have the support and know-how to set him up a no-till planter. Around 2000, ran to a person who worked for a company called Ag Spectrum, gave me an idea that really helped out to set up a planter and made it a lot more easier for me to plant into no-till. And with the knowledge of and support from others, farmers, going to no-till conferences and learning what worked best for them, gradually grew into no-till and feel very comfortable no-tilling corn. We've no-tilled soybeans since '89, had the old John Deere 750 drill. Easy way of going about no-tilling soybeans, but since then we had a air seeder, and now we like the precision of using a planter for soybeans also for no-tilling, especially with the cost of the seed that we have now. What I'd like to show you today is just the way we have our planter set up and the changes we made over the years, and the pluses and minuses of how we no-till corn throughout the past 12 years with what we're doing now. Okay, one of the first mistakes I made in the early 90s when I tried no-tilling corn was that I didn't apply the right amount of nitrogen at the time. It's very critical to apply nitrogen with your planter in no-till. I don't rely on pre-plant nitrogen or fall apply. That's a no-no for me. The first day of planting is the first day I put nitrogen on with the planter. Up front, I like the Deere planter. This is a 1770 16-row corn planter. This is my second one. I used to have the blue planter before, but what I like about the Deere planter, it has the pneumatic down pressure that monitors the depth for my seedling. It's very critical to keep your planter consistently the same across the field. So therefore, I have pneumatic down pressure with this. As you see, right now, I don't have any tanks on the planter except for the center tank I have. But I'm going to add, which the reason we have this tubing off right now, I'm going to add a couple of small tanks on here to give me a little bit more capacity with not only my 28% nitrogen on that I put on, but also some pop-up fertilizer that I put on. What I like about the John Deere no-till fertilized coulter is that it's simple, but I like it because it just has the single blade. You're not throwing as you would with a wavy coulter, wet dirt. The placement of it is more precise, I feel, with the gauge wheel that we have with the Deere no-till, the fertilized setup. And also the consistency of having the placement of the 28% or liquid nitrogen at the bottom of the seed trench. It doesn't float up and down. It's just consistent with the planter itself. A problem I had in the past with a fertilized coulter was that it would be weighted down too much, and it would be pushing dirt actually because the planter was just not consistently had the right amount of weight in order to keep it at the right placement. I put on 20 gallons of 28% nitrogen with this planter with 5 gallons of thiazole. I think it's critical to put sulfur in with your nitrogen program. And I try to keep this as far as I can from the placement of the seed because I don't want any seed burning. Another mistake I made in the past was that I thought that you had to have the no-till coulter in between the residue managers in order to do no-till. But really, that is the biggest mistake that that new no-tillers make is that they think they got to have that no-till coulter in front of your double disc openers. Just using your trash wheels or residue managers works best for me. These are floating Martin till residue managers. We can actually adjust the depth by just pulling this little crank here out and to adjust it a little bit where it's more consistent with just floating on your soil. You don't want these to dig into your soil. Just let your double disc openers do that. Also, we have these steel treader wheels. I like these because this keeps these residue managers from going into your soil. This kind of rides on top of the soil and the residue, but as you see, we just have just a little bit of a spike sticking out outside the treader wheels that they call, just to remove the residue. So what we're seeing here is a lot more consistency the way it's set up just to remove the residue instead of digging into the soil. That's the reason I like the Martin till system. The floaters work best for me because whenever I have unlevel soil out there, it's going to ride, it's actually going to float on top of the ground instead of with the face mounts that I had. If I had unevenness, it would actually dig into the dirt. Again, as you see, I don't have a no-till coulter out in front. I just feel that's does more harm than good, which I fought that over the years, and realizing that the double disc openers are all you need to open that seed trench for your no-till corn. You might have to replace them a lot more often, especially on the early years of no-till, but with the gauge wheel monitoring your seed depth, your double disc opening up the V for you, just get rid of that no-till coulter. It just had a big problem with throwing wet dirt. Had some air pockets in there with the seed. With the double disc only, you have the consistency and the precision of cutting the V right where you want it. On this planter, I used to have what you call the reduced inner diameter gauge wheels, but this one does not have it. This was the second year I did not have the reduced inner diameter gauge wheels, but if you're starting out no-tilling for the first time, I would highly recommend it because it makes the no-till so much easier to monitor the down pressure. You don't have that sidewall compaction, but why would I want to go back to getting away from that? Well, on this planter, I purchased a system called the Air Force system that monitors my down pressure, and believe it or not, sometimes the air pressure with this planter, with our soils, that how mellow they are and everything, we actually need a little bit of sidewall firmness around that seed. But it's very critical if you don't have the Air Force system to use the reduced inner diameter gauge wheels. Underneath this gauge wheel, this is the regular Deere gauge wheel. It's not the reduced inner diameter gauge wheel. But this is 1 year's use of 1,700 acres of corn. I just got this, not the wheel scraper, but the regular flat scraper that's on here. Now we have our pop-up fertilize, or it's like a low salt fertilize that we use, that we apply on our frog. It's welded on this frog here inside, your double disc here. It works a lot better. We actually apply the pop-up at the bottom of the seed trench, and then we use our Keaton to firm the seed on top of that. Seems like we get a lot more better placement with this, and by doing that, we don't have the buildup like we used to with dirt balling up on the seed with having this tube applied on the frog now. Another big mistake I did when I started no-tilling, I had these cast iron closing wheels. Cast iron closing wheels, I felt back then, well, we need to really have a lot of weight to close that seed trench and pack it down. Now we're at the point where we just kind of crush the side, and don't have any side compaction. It's very mellow on each side. We're just closing the seed trench, and that's what we're using the spaders for. Also, right here is the down pressure that I use. I don't even put any pressure back on the closing wheels, because with our soils being so mellow, like they are now, if I get back over, I just let them float on top. Works great, but the final picture is the drag chain. It kind of has a little, like a cup of dirt that it finishes off closing the seed trench with these spaders. If you're going to start in the no-till for the first time, I really feel this system is the easiest and best way of getting started in no-till. Again, you have to have fertilizer on with the planter, some sort of nitrogen. The more the better. Don't have that no-till coulter out front. It gives you more problems than what it's worth. Start with the reduced inner diameter gauge wheels. You'll be amazed that you don't have that sidewall compaction around the seed trench with the reduced inner diameter gauge wheels, if you don't have the Air Force system from Precision. Have the Keaton seed firmer. Preferably put the pop-up fertilize on with the frog that I have. But if you don't want to go this route, put it on with your Keaton seed firmer. At least put some kind of nitrogen, P&K with your seed. As soon as that seed's in the ground, it's getting some kind of nitrogen, and it's a good start. Use the spader closing wheels. Great luck with them. If you feel that uncomfortable using both of them, at least just use one rubber. Do not use the cast irons. Just a lot of heavy compaction. And the finishing touch is the drag chain. Now, this is what we call a new-till system. This system's been around for years. It was started by a group of farmers that started a company called Ag Spectrum. They had great success with that. And what's amazing, if you go to any farm shows now, you see a lot of this setup. I mean, and here it was started by a group of farmers. I think sharing information from other farmers is a great asset. What works best, what doesn't work best. Even learning about, which way to point your closing wheels. Just a few minor additions here and there makes it a great success for no-till farming. But in conclusion, it's the way to go. I wish I learned how to do this 20 years ago instead of trying it for 3 years and throwing the towel in. But now, with learning from other farmers and the support we have with each other, no-till is by far the only way to go in our farming operation.